Good morning, I'm Tom at Ledgemere. Welcome to day 5 of Tractor Week. Thanks to all of you who have graciously subscribed and followed along this week. It's been fun, and I wish I had more tractors, but this is number 5. This is the last one that I have. This is my newest tractor. It's a 1978 International Cub, and in 1964 Farmall changed the Cub from Farmall to International, as I mentioned on Monday, because they were mostly geared towards municipalities and schools, people that had businesses mowing lawns, cemeteries, etc. The small farmer really wasn't buying the Cub anymore. 1979 was actually the last year that the Cubs came out, so this 78 is pretty close to the end of the line. Between its initial debut in 1947 and 1964, International made 224 some odd thousand Cubs, and then between 64 and 79, when the last of the Cubs rolled off the line in March, they only made another 20,000. So most of the Cubs that were sold within the first 15 years or so. By the late 1970s, there were new emission standards. The Cub plant at Louisville, Kentucky was in need of being retooled again, and the cost of producing the tractors, retooling the factory, it wasn't cost effective. So by 1980, International Harvester had introduced a new line of compact diesel tractors from Japan, and that was to keep pace with John Deere and Kubota, because and even Ford, they had the Shibora, and John Deere had Yanmar. These are Scotch lock pliers that I had when I used to work at the phone company, and I feel like Riggs and Murtaugh's at the red wire or the green wire. One thing I can tell you is don't buy cheap electrical tape. This is the Scotch Super 88T. This is telephone tape. It's all weather. It's really a good product. The Super 33 is good also. And don't pull the tape when you need to cut it. Actually get something to cut it with, because when you pull it, you stretch the tape, and then what happens is when it gets cold, it contracts and it'll come undone. So you don't want to pull it. You see a lot of people, they cut their tape by pulling it. It's always a bad idea to do that. This is somebody telling you from years of experience working with the industry, with the telephone company. Don't want to pull it. So that was pretty easy. I've been looking for one of these for a long time. I'm so happy I finally found one. You know, one thing that's interesting about the last model, the Cub, is they went back to this teardrop design, and you can see that it's body colored, so it's white, and that's the case with all the lights that International put on their tractors. They were all the body color, so they were red, and International never put black lights on their tractors. They were always the color of the tractor itself. And so this manual here shows this tractor went to Brewer and then somehow it made its way to New Hampshire. And all the lights that were on the tractors were originally made by Guide Light, which I guess has been absorbed by AC Delco. And so understand that the facts that I tell you are facts that I've read, because most of these tractors were built prior to my existence. So I'm just going on either the internet, and we know how truthful that is, but anyway, that's just a little tidbit of where I'm getting my facts from, either books that I read, which I have a number of books, or just what I find on the internet. So but I definitely remember sitting on these tractors at EC Records and Alfred, Maine when I was a kid, but I couldn't tell you specific details other than I remember it was yellow and white. And one thing people don't often realize is the pull bar extension. You just reverse the direction of it to use the fast hitch, and that way you don't lose it. So you just take it off and then reposition it with the hole facing forward, and then it just stays with the tractor, so you're not hunting for it. And so when I look through these manuals, it mentions a magneto, and so I didn't know that in 78 they still put magnetos on these. I thought those were long gone. I mean, I thought that in 64, when they modernized, that all the Cubs were 12 volt and had an alternator. So reading in this manual for this tractor that shows magneto information in here, it makes me wonder, did somebody just not proofread really well, or were they actually available? You look at this, see, it shows you 6 volt systems, and it's just interesting that it still shows 6 volts. But then when you look at the manual for the front of this, see, it shows you Cub and Cub lowboy, and in 78 the lowboy was a whole different animal. It was not anything that looked like this. So you see, here's the lowboy. It did not look like that in 78. It would be cool to find a tachometer to put on a Cub. And those tire pumps, you took a spark plug out of the engine and screwed the tire pump into the engine, so it used engine compression to pump air into your tires. So here's I mean, I don't know how you could use a diesel engine, because there's no spark plugs on a diesel to take out. One of the things about the Cubs that's the biggest pain in the butt with them is that really, in order to service the engine, and you can just about reach the spark plugs, but you can't reach the alternator or anything on top without removing the hood. And to do so, you have to take the lights off, and then you got a bunch of bolts, disconnect the fuel, and then you got some more screws here to take off. So you have to take this whole hood assembly off to get to the top of the motor, and it's It's a little bit of a pain in the butt, but for routine service, you can get to the spark plugs. You know, you can change the oil, things like that. But really, it's a little bit of a pain to get in there. This Cub is in its original paint, its original working clothes. I'm not gonna lie to you, I did touch up the wheels. I don't like rusty wheels, so that's like the one thing that I don't like. The Cub didn't come with a spring, and so I did paint that, and I did get an aftermarket cap from International. I didn't paint that, it's just the way it is, and I don't understand why the lights are black. They might be original lights, they might not be, I'm not sure. They're 12 volt, but they should have been white. This tractor, basically all I use it for is sickle bar mowing, and this has the larger 5-foot mower on it. The smaller mower is 4.5 feet, and I use this tractor primarily for sickle mowing, and I use it occasionally to tow a trailer or do some gardening, but this is what its life is here. And as far as like options that the tractor came with, it's got a full set of weights on it. It has the deluxe seat, which ended up changing the cushions out, and you can see it's green, so it's not just International that uses these. I had a John Deere M that used exactly the same cushions, and it has the fast hitch, and I'm told it's not uncommon for that bar to be bent. And so I've got the pull bar out for towing, but like I mentioned before, you just unhook it and flip it around. And then I've got the light I just put on. And I got this tractor, I think 2 years ago, and I bought it because it reminded me of going to E.C. Rickers in Alfred when I was a kid, and sitting on them. And the last tractor my dad had was a 75 that looked a lot like this. It was a 75 or a 77. I don't remember anymore, to be honest with you. I really don't have any intention of painting the tractor. I kind of like it. I like the patina. In the last few years that they made the Cub, they call these the long stripe, so it's got the black and blue stripe. And the very last year they made the Cub, they could be had, and this is throughout the whole life of the Cub, you could always buy it with red, but you didn't see a lot of the red International Cubs like this. So the last year they made them red. I've had people tell me that the yellow ones were sold at the lawn and garden dealers, and the red ones were sold at the tractor, the farm dealers. And I specifically remember going to the farm dealer, and they were yellow. So there's probably some truth to that. I know like hardware stores and lawn and garden centers had Cub Cadet lawn and garden equipment, and the Cub was sold at both. It was sold as a lawn and garden tractor. It was sold at the farm machinery dealer, because it was just a tractor that small farmers would buy, and it really decreased in popularity at the end because, like I had mentioned before, Ford, John Deere, Kubota were available with small diesel engines and 3-point hitches, and the usefulness of the Cub had just kind of dissipated at that point. This Cub in its final configuration was 15 horsepower. That was due to some domed pistons they had put in, and they changed the carburetor, so they were able to, over the years, increase it from 8.5, 9 horsepower to 15. The low boy, like the 184, 185, or whatever they were, 154s, they got them up to 18, but the motor was a little bit different. They had independent PTOs, and there were a few things different, so like you can't really do an engine swap easily. Even though it was the same C60 engine per se, an engine swap between an International Cub farm tractor into like a lowboy, I've heard they don't fit very well. So this is a 1-point fast hitch carrier, and it's one of my favorite attachments for this tractor. So I'm under my barn, and it's a mess again as usual. I've got a snowplow for the Cubs. This is an L 194 fast hitch plow. I've got the Coulter that goes on the fast hitch in another location. I've got belt pulleys, cultivators, an extra planter, sickle bar parts, hubs, wheels, tires, the whole front assembly of a tractor. All these parts and pieces, more rims, fenders, planter parts. This is the hand lift assembly I was telling you about. Buckets and buckets of parts. These right here go on the planter. These are the shoes that go on it. Extra mufflers, manure spreader parts. Here's a complete runner planter unit right here. I've got 2 of these fertilizer hoppers. That's the original one. This is an aftermarket, but I've only got 1 of these seed hoppers. Here's 2 sets of cultivators. I've got the lift here for plows, for the 2-way plows. Another whole rear lift assembly. This right here is a fertilizer injector. Here's my 100, they call it a Cub spreader. It's a 100 spreader, ground drive spreader. We have a fast hitch planter. It's got the covers, seed plates, a bunch of the gears for the reduction. And I've got 2 sets of these hillside rollover plows. This one's for the 140. The one's over there for the Cub. Set of disc harrows for the Cub, a 140. This plow, our snow plower here, is for the Super C. It's still got the writing on it, the stamp. McCormick 2C72 grater blade. Another set of Cub weights. Fast hitch grater blade, snow plow for the 140. I have 2 of these disc harrows. Super C plows, another set of disc harrows. This is a 211 plow. These are usually for the like a 300 or something, but this got the small points on it, so it fits on the Super C just fine. Number 3 field cultivator. And then I've got just part of a mower here that you could use for a weight box or whatever. And then this fast hitch homemade hiller. You could buy these prongs from the IH dealer back in the day. They actually sold these hiller parts for the toolbars, but I think this one came off something horse-drawn if you look at the handles on it. But it works. And then the last thing I have is this McCormick trailer, which matches the 48 pretty well. And I don't know if this is in restored condition. I don't know if, well, I mean, it was painted, but I don't know if it was fixed up with body work or if it was just kept in really good shape, but it did come with the 48, so this trailer was parade ready when I bought it. That's about all I have for today. I hope that you've enjoyed this week as much as I have. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you next time. Thank you for watching.